Often screen printed or embroidered. How about some slick graphics on that hot ride to make you stand out from the crowd? Accelerated Graphics and Signs can handle anything you throw at them. Located at 101 East Renfro Street, Suite C in Burleson, Texas, go in and see them. Call them at 817-991-0523 or reach them on the web at www.acceleratedgraphics.net. They are loud and proud and want to serve you. Accelerated Graphics.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395, 800-709-4395.
You're listening to JoCo Community Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to No Judgment here. I am your host, Tish Ross. Tonight, we are talking about bullying and what bullying can lead to, depression, suicide. We're discussing all of these things with my guest, Mason Varguez. Mason, thank you for coming to the show. I so appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you just having me on.
Of course. And if you'll push that microphone up just a little bit towards your mouth. Yeah, awesome. So we're going to dive in. We have so much to talk about. And, you know, one of the reasons why I love doing this type of show is because it helps parents, women, men. I really believe not just men, but especially men with tonight's topic, become a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more self-aware, maybe discover some things that they hadn't really thought about and maybe can relate to you, maybe can feel like, okay, I'm not the only one, I'm not alone in the way that I'm feeling. Because unfortunately, the society that we live in the past, and I think now that this new generation, I think people are starting to open up a little bit more in terms of expressing how they feel or being okay with expressing emotions, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And especially men. I think women have always been known a little bit more to express their feelings and their emotions, to cry, to express sadness or depression, whereas men back in the day, and even back in your day, growing up, it has always been the expectation of men to be strong, to withhold expressing certain emotion or feelings. And I hope we didn't just go off the air. And also to not cry, to always be told, suck it up, buttercup, you'll be all right, brush it off, real men don't cry. Yes, all of those things. And so I'm so glad that you are here today. And thank you for being very transparent and for being very vulnerable, because for a lot of men, that's a hard thing to do.
It's completely hard.
Yes. So let's start with your childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up here in Joshua, went K through 12, stayed in the area until I was about 19. Joined the military, went off, did everything. But just to start back, growing up here, it's a little different. I would say, because like when you get in the military, everybody expresses their backgrounds and whatnot. For me, coming from a small town and some other guys coming from city life and whatnot, is completely different. But in the same way, we all were raised almost similar ways. Told that, you're not allowed to, if you hurt your knee or whatever, rub some dirt on it, tape an aspirin to it, that kind of thing. But you're not allowed to like, get upset and stuff like that. Like even growing up, my dad would be like, if you're going to be a man one day, you're going to have to get over it. But, going back to even getting raised by, family friend, which ended up turning to my pretty much extended family grandfather, kind of told me that, what was the phrasing he said? He said that real men show their emotions and own up to what they're feeling, which, I wish I stuck earlier than when it did, because he ended up moving up to Washington. So I didn't really get that background behind him, but I always remember that from him. But yeah, so going through elementary school, kind of normal, being a kid and whatnot. I've seen racism in my life, being treated differently because, 20, actually probably about 25 years ago, I was one of the only, Hispanics in Joshua, not very many of us that were there that I saw. Even like going into middle school, like I went to go show up for a date to pick up this girl, and like pretty much got told like you're not allowed to date my daughter, because you're Hispanic. Which, at the time I didn't really understand it. My mom even had to explain it to me a little bit. But it still didn't really click at that time. Even actually there was a time in middle school where I got bullied in the football locker room. I had one student had me pretty much in a chokehold, and then pretty much another student had like pull down his pants and like put his butt in my face. And it for me, like I started crying and stuff like that. Even one of my counselors at Joshua, which is still a great friend of mine today, went to her office, and they pretty much handled this situation, straight there and there. Like, I was in tears in her office crying. It was still kind of a blur, at the time. But just thinking about it now, like I remember getting rushed off to her, the counselor's office, sitting there. The coach came and talked to me, asking me, who did it, and to be honest, I don't even remember if I gave names or not. But I just remember, the next practice in the morning, coach was just like, this is not acceptable. We're all a team, that kind of thing, which, they really had my back on that part. But yeah, just experiencing it then, even going into high school, I got made fun of. I was a little bit different. I was kind of friends in all different types of cliques. But yeah, I think that made me a little bit different and made, people, I didn't stand out to one group.
Gotcha.
So, it made it a little bit harder to connect with people because I had like a massive amount of different friends, could relate to a bunch of people, which now I'm thankful for, that I have all these different backgrounds to go to and have communicated, like, be able to talk to somebody and experience, different things with them because I can relate to them now.
So for any maybe parent right now that is listening before we go into as you get older and into adulthood, what would you say? I mean, you're a parent as well. So what signs would a parent look for? I mean, do you know if
That's hard.
I was going to say, I don't know if
it's super hard because if anyone's 20, actually probably about 15 years ago, John Carmichael was the middle school student that committed suicide. Was one of my little brother's best friend. My little brother had no idea. I remember my brother being torn up about it. I know he still misses him today. Like I know if we talk about him and whatnot, you can just see, in his face that he had no idea. I remember they said that he had like a goodbye note in his locker at school. But yeah, it was terrible because like he went to the barn they had in the back and committed suicide, and it led all down to being bullied. And he was a smaller kid, and for me, my son who's 6 is a bit on the smaller side, and there's been times in school where he's been bullied and whatnot. But I go and talk to him, and he's expressive about it, and I tell him to express his emotions, because if he doesn't, then he's gonna bottle it up, and I'm never gonna know. I always try to keep communication open with him, even for parents listening in. If your child is going through something emotional, don't let them shut it off. Be expressive about it, because if they don't trust you to go to you to talk to you about it, they're never going to talk. I think that was something that was hard for me to express even to my mom today. My mom's pretty much my hero. She's been with me my entire, growing up, everything that I've been through with the military, PTSD, emotional stuff going on recently. My mom has always had my back, even when I've done wrong. She's just like, look, we're going to get over it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to correct your wrongs. You did wrong and whatnot. But even still, like trying to talk to her now is still hard. Like you don't want to have your parents see you in this light where, I feel, I don't want to feel judged, even by a parent. But yeah.
And so going back to high school. So how did you deal with that? How did you personally, I mean, as an adolescent, deal with being bullied? I mean,
So when I was in high school, middle school, growing up, I was kind of, go with the flow. If someone's doing wrong to me, I just really didn't care at that time. I was having fun, enjoying life. Yeah, I got bullied a little bit. I got made fun of. Did it bother me a little bit? Yeah, of course. But it's just kind of like I just didn't think about it. I was like, in my mindset, it was just like I've got other things to worry about. I want to do what makes me happy. Was that the healthiest way of dealing with it? No. I know I probably should have talked about it a little bit more because I played video games. I went and played sports, try to shove it down instead of talking about it, which I think I should have. But, even going, graduating into college, going to college, even going in there and seeing, a little bit of the world ended up being a little bit different because I got to see other, environments, other things, and like got to go into like a group of friends where I clicked with a little bit better. Quote unquote, a little bit of a misfit, but yeah, like, once I got to that point where I fit in with somebody and got to experience other, life and being a little bit more freedom, I didn't have to worry about that stuff in the end. I think really where it started making a little bit more sense, well, especially racism, going into college, kind of stuck a little bit more. Going up to school, in Fort Worth, Arlington area, into the city, you could see where, the mindset's a completely different thing versus our little area out here, Burleson, Joshua area. Yeah. So it's just different. Like,
yeah. And so once you went through college, did you graduate college, or what did you major in college? Did you have a major?
Yeah, I had a major, biomedical engineering. Finished that, was pretty much done with college at that point. Decided that I was going to go, work for, worked at Target for a while, worked with AT&T with my mom, applied, at different jobs like Alcon, stuff like that. Just realized that it wasn't working out. I needed to do something with my life. And then I turned to the military.
Okay.
Decided to join the Air Force at 19, left, got married to my high school sweetheart, like we ended up moving to, after basic training, moving to Florida and all that. It was just different. It was a complete culture shock. And especially for the military, like leading up to the bullying aspect, there's a lot of, if you want to call it like it's pretty much a fraternity. Like when you're an airman, like when you first turn 21, going into that lifestyle, it's, hey, I'm going to drink. I'm like depressed. I'm, away from home. You start bullying other airmen because, you hold rank over them now. Like you can sit there and be like, hey, hey, you got to give me 10 push-ups. Not that it actually happens, but sometimes it does. Like, hey, you're the chow runner today. Go grab us all food. Unfortunately it happens. I've done it. I've done my part. I've even been in like a part of roll calls where we, pretty much mess with each other. I've been duct taped to a wall because I was the, junior enlisted in the squadron. I've had pranks pulled on me because I was the young one. Even like Air Force call sign is kind of a tradition. You get your call sign, but it's not Top Gun. You get, a call sign of Maverick, Goose, Rooster, that kind of thing. It's all your faults that they get a big old whiteboard, and it's a tradition. I get it. Like it's been passed down. There's technically nothing wrong with it, but at the same time, it leads into how you're pretty much being indoctrinated, and like
right.
you're going through hazing and stuff like that. But like, so for instance, my first call sign was Bilko because our parking lot was small. I drove a lifted, Dodge 2500. Couldn't see the Mustang next to me, and I backed straight. Like my tire pretty much went over the quarter panel over it. Wow. And my call sign ended up being Bilko, which stood for backed into Lieutenant's Compact.
Gotcha.
And then like even my next one, Lily, I had been dating like 3 different girls at the time, and my squadron knew about it because we're pretty much family. And it ended up standing for Loves Incompetent Little Youths. And and it gets creative. Like there's other ones where like one of them is pyro. He ended up accidentally setting his jet on fire, and and that's what he's remembered for.
Right.
And it's not the correct way to go about it, but I get it. Like in good fun, like I get it. Like,
and so tell me how you were bullied in the military, in terms of. So is that kind of what you're talking about, being hazed? And
I've even had other instances where, ended up going on a profile, which is, like I got hurt and I couldn't work out for about 6 months. Usually you get about 45 days to 2 months to get healthy, to go take your, physical fitness test again. Even my supervisor, just like a week later after coming off the profile, was like, no, you got to go test. And I'm like, I'm not ready. I haven't been running. I haven't been working out. Like I've been having back spasms. I can't, like I was on, painkillers for almost, 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just like, there's no way I'm going to be able to pass this. And like, she's like, I don't care. You're going to go take it. And I'm just like,
and so what would happen if you didn't pass?
So what happens, you get written up, and it starts that fear mindset of like, what's going to happen to me? You have to fail 4 of them for, which it's not terrible. Like you get time to go make it up and whatnot, but still, like, that's on your record now. Even if I wanted to go for, a combat unit or whatnot, you have to go apply and do a whole job interview pretty much. But if that blemish is on your record, that could be the difference between you getting it or not.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so like, you don't want those things on your record, because as soon as you go to the next unit, they're going to look at that and be like, okay, what's been going on with this? Granted, they fall off over time, but when you're first in for the first 2 to 3 years, you're just like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
So,
right.
And like what we were talking about before, you mentioned the basic training, like, and it starts there.
Okay.
The mindset is that you're going to get broken down first, and then you're going to get built back up.
Now, I want to stop there. What do you think about that? And the reason why I ask you this is because, and I, as Mason and I were discussing right before we went live, I can remember one of my siblings being in the military, and I was really, really young. But I remember a specific phone call that he made. I think it was after boot camp. I don't think that he could call during. Forgive me if you're listening, if I'm wrong. But what I do remember is there was a phone call. He was very upset. He was sharing with my mom how it wasn't, the things that were happening there weren't right. That they were all being mistreated. It was wrong what they were doing. And my dad, being a military guy, he was in the Navy as well, had told my mom, just let it be, just let it be. And what do you think about that? Like, is it, and I'm not trying to say, well, let's just have the military where everybody's babied, and I understand that. Being
like
torn down,
you do have to get torn down, because civilian life and military life is completely different. Like if you're given an order, you're expected to follow it. There's certain processes you have to follow. You have to be able to not think about it and go carry out that that objective mission, whichever, without hesitation. And I get that part of it.
Right.
The part that I don't agree with, even at basic training, when you're getting broke down, you're getting yelled at, you're getting screamed at, and it's to cause stress. It's super stressful. I remember like the first phone call I got, as soon as you get your first phone call the first night, it's literally like a 15-second phone call. Hey, mom, dad, I made it here. Here's my address. I'm now at Lackland. I will be here for the next blah, blah, blah. Hang up. And they don't even really get to say a word. You're not even allowed to have a conversation. You're cut off. And like, it's, at that moment, I'm just like, what is going on right now? Like, this is completely new to me. You're called, when you first get there, you're called sneaker weakers because you don't even have boots yet. You're running around in a uniform with no name tags, no boots, we're not even really a hat yet. So, you're pretty much called out right then and there. You're completely in a different environment. You keep getting, upgraded. You finally get your boots, you get your name tags, you get, your uniform actually like fit your dress blues fitted to you like on your 4th or 5th week. But, and it is progression. But the part that I don't agree with was like how we were talking about, like, you have to embrace the suck. You, shut up and color. You have to just, not even think about it, go about it. I don't agree with that part.
Is there any kind of, so like you said, you understand the stress because in order to protect a family member, meaning the military, your family, as well as the country, you have to be able to do things without thinking. You have to be
Compartmentalize everything.
Yes. And so obviously that takes a special type of training, and you have to be able to react quickly and make the right decision, the best decision based on the situation for a family member or for the country, the military. And I understand and respect all of that.
And that's where the bullying part comes in for the military. Because like you see somebody going through that, be like, hey, dude, you just need to shut up and get over it. You need to keep moving forward. You don't need to be thinking about this kind of stuff. Even I've had guys making fun of other guys for expressing their emotions about different things. You'd be like, hey, like, stop being a baby, like get over it, like you're being a little girl. If you want to go back home, you can just hop on the flight and go. That kind of thing. And that's where it really comes down. Like even at boot camp, if everyone's seen like Full Metal Jacket or that kind of movie where they have like soap parties, sock parties, whichever branch you're part of, they'll know the difference. Where you pretty much hold one guy that's been like screwing up the whole squadron, and like you're trying to be perfect. You don't want to get yelled at anymore. They're the ones that are always messing up. They're off step and in drill. They're not doing the exercises right. They're the ones that the drill sergeants are always like hounding all the time. And finally the other airmen are just fed up with it. Everybody just kind of like holds him down with a blanket and just starts beating him. And that's we've had like in my unit we had one. And was it right? Probably not. But at the same time we're all under the same stress. And we're just like if you're not going to listen to them, we're going to make your unit realize your unit's going to fix it for you.
Gotcha.
Even going back to when I first got to boot camp, there was a suicide in our squadron when we first got there. And, that part really messed me up too, was just because like everybody, our first week there, it's 0 week, and we're just like, whoa, okay, what's going on? Like we went from everybody carrying to a satchel bag to having to wear a web belt because that's what they committed suicide with. So it was just super quick. And even on my 7th week, there was another airman that committed suicide. And and if you start talking about your emotions and stuff like that at boot camp straight from the get-go, they're pretty much looking to get you kicked out.
And so when did you, so we had talked about you discussing pretty much hazing going on, you being bullied. What we shared and talked about before was that then you became the bully. Explain how that happened.
So yeah, even starting at basic training, like even with the sock party, becoming the bully, like realizing like, hey, you're screwing up, you're not going to mess this up for me. I'm tired of running extra. I'm tired of doing push-ups. Going into hanging out with my friends, down at the local bar. Making fun of other people, thinking that you're the big dog, in town, just because you're military. Your mindset's completely different, and like when you're compartmentalizing all this stuff, you start developing that quote unquote alpha male mentality, and you're just like, oh, I'm like no one can touch me kind of thing. I remember. Like even a couple friends, we would be out at the bar and whatnot. We'd be making fun of other people, like in front of their faces. Like even to the point where a couple friends of mine would be tripping people. I'd just be laughing, just being, granted, like I get it. It was my early 20s. I was still a child.
Sure.
And not thinking about it. But at the same time, it's just like, what are you doing, dude? Yeah, like it's not fun to be that person, like looking back on it. But at the same time, it was just like I was trying to deal with all the stress that I'm dealing with at work. Like even for me, where a lot of guys in the military will go out drinking like the night prior, but we have PT in the morning at 6 o'clock, and you just be like, okay, we're gonna go out till 4 a.m, not sleep, go home, get dressed, change, go to work, go to PT at 6 o'clock, go shower, change, go back to work, go take a nap, and then you're gonna go right back out to the bar. And it's not even that you're just so stressed out and you just want to have quote unquote fun. It's not really fun. It's just there's no outlet to get that emotion out. It's just like either if I'm going to talk about it, I risk my career being kicked out. And that's something that when I got out, I didn't know how to handle. I got out in 2019. going through a lot of emotional stress, moving right back before COVID, trying to find a job. I didn't know how to handle that emotion. And I just let it consume me and whatnot, and started leading a depression. But yeah, going back to just why I was doing it, it was just, there's no outlet. It was just, I'm just trying to get my emotional stress out. And, even going back to like high school and stuff like that, and like thinking about it, the people that were bullying me, I'm not sure if they were going through emotional stress at home, school, whichever it may be. Now that we're older, some of the kids that, that bullied me that are older now, I've had conversations with. We were kids, but now that we're a little bit older, and the way mental health has been progressing nowadays, it's a lot different. And like you said, like today, where people are opening up, I think there's a big divide and a big misunderstanding about mental health. And
Exactly.
it's a super big one. Like me recently, back in December, like we were talking about, I almost committed suicide.
Tell me why. Explain to those that are listening. I know we're getting ready for a commercial break, but what started those thoughts? What happened then? Why would you even consider suicide?
So suicide, like my suicide for me was really straight out of getting out of the military. It ended up being where to even start? Getting out, the stress of like trying to find a job, getting under that emotional stress, not understanding, what my purpose is now, because, in the military, I have a job, I go do it, I come back, I know what my job is, I know what my job is providing for the military, what it's providing for the country. But then even going into, even my relationships, not being able to understand my emotional needs and whatnot, and like just making these quick-based decisions that I'm so used to without even thinking, that it ended up, just teeter-tottering down. Even getting 2020, got into a relationship, with this woman, and we had dated. We even cut off ties in our relationship, just kind of severed it, and not really talked about it. We just no closure and whatnot. Fast forwarding, to 2021, started dating my, new girlfriend, which I ended up cheating on her in the end with that said woman. And, she ended up getting pregnant. And, I'm, obviously now I realized that it was an emotional based decision, not even thinking. And, it led down to not being able to express my emotions, talk about it. When I went to go meet her to talk about, what was going on with us, everything leading to one thing to the next. It was that, like, if I had actually sat back and thought about it, would I have made the same decision rather than just going, okay, let's go have this talk, because my emotional needs aren't being met. Not by my girlfriend, but the emotional needs that we didn't close off. And, the saying, leave it where it is. Don't just let it go.
Exactly. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will come back in just a bit, and we'll listen to Mason finish sharing his story. You guys come back.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Got a dead carpet giving you the blues? Tired of your old dingy and broken tile? Let my friends at the Floor Store in Cleveland, Texas give your home the makeover it deserves. This is Old Taco Joe coming to you for the Floor Store. Whether it's carpet, tile, wood flooring, or real wood laminate, the Floor Store can cover all of your flooring needs. Located at 405 West Henderson Street in Cleveland, Texas, owner Brent Harris can help with shower tile, tub surrounds, even backsplashes. Give them a call today at 817-641-9444. The Floor Store, they got you covered. When you're hungry for tender brisket or some delicious homemade cobbler, then look no further than Leach Brothers Barbecue, located at 1106 East Henderson in Cleveland, Texas. Leach Brothers has been family owned and operated since 1950. Take it from me, Taco Joe Orwinski. Todd and his family have been filling my belly breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a long time. Heck, I even have my own booth, open Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Come see them for dine-in, carry-out, and all your catering needs.
The voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Welcome back. Joco Community Radio is proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and is live 365 days a year on the TuneIn Radio Network. To listen or watch, simply go to tuneinjoco.com to choose where and how. The Joco Community Radio app is now available for free on Android and Apple devices. Simply search your store. Check out our lineup and more on jococommunityradio.com. This episode and more brought to you by Patriot Claims, making your insurance work for you. Reach out to your Texas sales rep, Nona Reed, at 844-TEXHAIL. That's 844-839-4245, and Nona will take care of you guys. We are back with Mason, and we're going to continue our conversation on bullying, suicide attempts, and depression. And Mason, you were sharing that it was affecting your relationships, your personal relationships with your significant others, and how you even cheated on a girlfriend. And it sounds almost like, because things were not discussed, emotions and feelings and things like that were not discussed in the military. And I get that they are training you and equipping you to do the best job that you can for, again, your troop, your family, our country. But it also has its negative effects, which you're not discussing anything, which I think and hence leads to PTSD, depression, obviously suicide, and disrupt your life after coming out of the military, not necessarily knowing how to live this life out in the quote unquote real world. I mean, aside from being in the military, coming out and living the civilian life, I guess. Right. And so you had also mentioned, or we had also discussed prior to that, you have also experienced or even seen that in the workplace. And I've had a lot of people, when I was discussing bullying in high school with some parents and some children that were bullied, they too have expressed that, well, it's not just when you're a kid, and it also happens in the workforce. Explain a little bit how that, or you saw that or experienced that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously it started, I started seeing that in the Air Force. While I was in, I had a supervisor, while I was off, partying, doing all this, she kind of hand plucked me and was just like, what are you doing with your life, kind of situation. And, she was one of the, supervisors that made me realize that, the way you treat people is how you really get them to respond to you. And she literally sat me down. Actually, I wouldn't even say sat me down. She had me standing at attention in front of her. I'm sitting there listening to her taking this butt chewing, and she's just like, look, I'm only doing this because I actually care. She's like, if I didn't care, she's like, you'd be out there and I wouldn't say a word to you and I just let you continue about your day. And she really just pretty much established, she's like, I see qualities in you that will make a great leader, but you're not doing it the correct way. It really stuck with me, even going on to, my next base and, becoming, an official supervisor and my team and whatnot, and realizing that we weren't even meshing well together. And I was like, what is going on? And then, I even reached out to her, what can I do differently and stuff like that. And she's always been my mentor. And actually she's the one that ended up helping save me during my suicide attempt last year.
Wow.
Yeah. And I hadn't talked to her for 3 years. So obviously, people in our lives, they care, they want to be in our lives. And that's what I ended up having to do with my troops, in South Carolina, was, getting to know them, understanding what they like. I even had an airman who was autistic. And I didn't even know I don't know how to handle that. I'm in the military and I'm like, this kid made it all the way through basic training, tech school, and now he's here to me. And I'm just like, what's going on, dude? Like, I don't know how to communicate with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was getting on to him, writing him up, and, you know, pretty much got to the point where he was ready to shut down. You know, we even had conversations about him, you know, going postal. He was becoming suicidal, that kind of thing. And then finally, it just dawned on me that, you know, let me go do a dorm inspection. Let me see what his living conditions are like. And that's really when I found out he was autistic, because I had my suspicions. He wasn't even raised by his parents. He was raised by his grandmother. He didn't know how to bathe. He didn't know how to do laundry. He was just like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff. Like, he's just like, I was never taught and never knew how to do it. And it just made me realize that, like, I was just like, okay, this is a new level of relationship that I need to work on, because I don't, and my mindset is just like, embrace the suck. Let's keep moving, dude. Like,
Right.
and it really opened my eyes that I need to start listening to people, like, especially like people that aren't expressing themselves a little bit more. And, yeah, like, so even in the workplace, going down that rabbit hole, like, whenever I started communicating with them, giving them a little bit more responsibility, instead of just like, hey, step off, like, I got this, or, you know, yelling at them, you're not doing your job right. It doesn't do any good to them. Because obviously, like, for me now, you know, personally, like, changing careers and stuff like that, I'm leaving a career where I'm not happy in my workplace and management's treating us bad. And even when I was in, you know, store, quote unquote, store leadership, the problem is that I told them, I was like, look, you're not understanding your people. You're not communicating with them well. Like, whenever you come up to me, what's going on with the store today? It's like, hi, how are you? How's your day going?
Right.
Just that little bit of effort, knowing what's going on. Even in, like, the store leader, prior to the management we have now, they were just like he would come up to me, Mason, how's your son doing? Completely different, like, starting off rapport from the get-go.
Right.
Like, even when we go through airman leadership school, we actually have training on how to greet our airmen in the morning and how to change the environment. You know, and going down this, you know, going back to this, but with suicide, like, even in the Air Force, like, we're trained how to see the signs of suicide. But here's the problem. You're equipping us how to hide all the suicide,
Yes.
awareness. Like, I could tell you that, you know, like, hey, you need to show that, like, you know, your uniform's all messed up. You're not taking care of yourself. You know, your grooming standards are going down. Your performance at work is going down. Well, if I just do those things to keep everything bottled up, you're never going to know.
Right.
So, you know, building the rapport first and foremost is especially in the morning. Hey, I'm having a bad day. Cool. Do you want to talk about it?
Right.
Yes, no, whichever way it goes. I'm like, cool. Whenever you're ready or you want to talk, I'm here for you. We can shut the door and it doesn't leave this office. If it gets any serious than that, I will, you know, try to help you out. If we need to go off base, I would prefer you to do it off base, go see a therapist. Because if you do it on base, it's getting reported to the mental health office. And now we're going down, you know, okay, well, are you fit for duty? So, and it's literally just doing those little steps. I'm like, this doesn't have to leave in it. We can go see the chaplain or, you know, a pastor if you need to, and it stays there. If you are suicidal, they'll go get you help, but we can do it, you know, do it somewhere else where it's safer.
Right.
But yeah, like, workplace bullying, it happens all the time. Like, you know, you go into, you know, management's and they're hounding on somebody, being like, hey, why aren't your quotas messed? Like, you're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. I even look at micromanaging as bullying. You're taking my job away from me now, telling me that I'm messing up pretty much. Let me do my job.
And, you know, I think a lot of that too, especially nowadays, a lot of micromanaging would absolutely not be necessary if, and this is a whole different topic, but I think a lot of it too is lack of training. People don't want to take the time to train, which then causes people, number one, to hate their job because they don't know how to do it, but they're also getting yelled at because they're not doing it right.
Oh yeah.
And if they were trained, if someone would just take the time, and it does take time to train someone properly, then you get better results. They wouldn't hate their job. They would know what they're doing. Numbers would be met. And like you said, also though, we are all human beings. Everyone that is working because they have to support or provide or have a means to live. And we are all on this planet to, you know, God's commandments to love one another. And so if you can just be a little bit human, just a tad, good morning, how are you?
Absolutely.
That might help.
And especially going to the training part, like we had a hurricane evacuation in South Carolina where, you know, there's 3 different fighter squadrons and there's a hurricane coming. Our job as the, you know, the non-commissioned officer in charge is to find, schedule out a plan to get all these aircraft, coordinating my troops, who's going to the next TDY spot. It ended up coming down to where we had a unit deploying at the very exact same time. We had actually my unit that was supposed to go on a, TDY business trip to go do an exercise in, Las Vegas. And while all of this is happening, while there's a hurricane coming in 2 days, and we have to evacuate 96 F-16s. So it's just like, me and the 3 other NCOICs for, each unit are just sitting there like, okay, what's the plan? Everybody was sitting, and I'm like, okay, obviously there is no plan. I'm just sat there and I'm like, okay, here, I'm sending one of my guys out there to Louisiana, which we were evacuating to. And I was just like, who's got another troop that can go out there? And they were just like, well, we don't have anybody. So I'm just like, okay, then I'm going. And then I need somebody back here to take care of everybody to get out there. I need these 16 aircraft to go up north to get ready for the deployment. And then I'm taking 16 jets from Louisiana to Las Vegas. And then I need somebody to escort them back to the base. And it was just literally like sitting down with everybody and being like, within a day, just getting all the training ready. Right. This is the plan. This is what's going on. If everybody knows what's going on and they can do it, I have no problem. I'm not going to go sit there and micromanage you.
Absolutely.
I trust you to do your job, but that's still a part of the bullying part. Like, if I don't trust you to know what you're doing, I'm pretty much getting mad at you and just like, get out of my way. And that our whole relationship's just degraded at that point.
Absolutely.
And you don't know what's going on with someone's personal life.
That's right.
I mean, they could be being, bullied, domestic abuse from their spouse, that type of bullying. Like it just trickles down from there.
And so someone just commented, if you have comments for Mason, please type them in and I will read them to him. There's a comment here. It says, you face such a reality change going into the military as well as when you come out of the military. What a shock to the brain. Or if you have any questions for Mason as well, type them in to the comments.
And like for that comment, it's just structure. You go in, they give you this pretty much roadmap. Like there's a binder for everything. If I need a PCS, there's a binder. If I need to go do a different part of my job, like I had, mission scheduling, I had, the ops desk, I had, TDY binders. Like we had continuity for everything. But when you get out, there's no continuity. Like you go to, transitional airman program. I can't remember whatever it's called now, but it's called TAPS. But whenever you're going through that, it's just like, okay, you're giving me my binder. But then when I get out, it's just like, okay, there's no one guiding me anymore. There's no supervisor I can turn to. You try to reach out for support. Like my whole structure system just depleted. I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now.
And I could understand that because, when young people go into the military, they're coming out from the guidance and direction of their parents or their caregiver, whoever is raising them, a pastor or a grandparents. They're going right into the military as a young person, gaining direction and guidance through the military and their program, their binders. Here's what you do here. Here's how you react to this. And this is how I want you to be, to then leaving if they retire from the military or they do their time or whatnot. And then they leave the military and then it's like out into civilian world. And you're like, what in the world?
And like the bullying part, like you can go 2 different directions on your leadership style. You can be the bully or you can be able to work with your team there. And I believe there's a difference between management and leadership.
Absolutely.
Sergeant Shu, who's my still lifelong friend. I communicate with her every once in a while. I have questions about her daughter, Charlie, I think she's like 10, 11 now. And this has been a while, years ago now. I'm even asking her for support. Like, what are you doing with, I'm facing this with Kaysen. What'd you do for Charlie? And she's like, well, I'm still going through this because she's got 2 other kids that are Kaysen's age. So I'm just like, okay, well, let's figure this out. Like, what are we supposed to be doing?
And so when was your last, I know we only have about 15 minutes left. When was your last suicide attempt and how did you get through? What kind of tools are you using now to cope? Because you said that you have PTSD. Depression is not something that we all get sad. So I've been sad and down before, but depression is, for some, can be lifelong, and you have to learn how to cope. So when was your last time your suicide attempt?
Suicide attempt was in December. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like that I cheated. I know better than that. And in my back of my mind, I'm just like, Mason, why did you do that? Going through all the emotional, not being able to talk about it. If I had, gone to my girlfriend at the time, be like, hey, my ex has reached out to me, she wants to talk. I need to talk through this to get over that, to have closure with her, to end up, having that communication. I didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I should have. I knew better, but it was just like my emotional communication was just completely off. But yeah, like leading up to that, in August, that happened, August, I think 23rd of last year. And then, it started trickling down. I tried to communicate with her, try to fix things, try to admit, but I kept going down the rabbit hole, started lying about it, trying to avoid, conflict with her. That kind, it just being honest is the best thing. Even as a bully, if you're being honest about your emotions, you're never going to go down that route at that point. If you're, talking to your kids and they're going through stuff, let them be expressive and express their emotions. But even going into my suicide, it was in December, pretty much got off work, was ready just to, pretty much overdose. But, Sergeant Shu, who, ended up calling my mom, ended up finding a way to communicate with me, and just like told me her, life story and whatnot, and what her experiences with suicide were. And it really opened up my eyes. And she pretty much was just like, look, if you do this, where's your son going to be? And he's always going to wonder for the rest of his life. And, how I ended up getting over it, she ended up getting me help to go talk to a therapist. He ended up telling me like, hey, you may not, if this doesn't work out or we need to get you a new therapist, just tell me. But he's just like, we're going to focus on not the past. We're going to focus on getting you structure to look towards the future. It's already happened. There's nothing that's going to fix it. But how you go about it emotionally and logically are going to change, going based on structure. He ended up giving me like a cost benefit analysis plan that like ended up is stuck up here now. Like I don't even have to think about it. I can think about, I have like 3 different options. Which one's going to be the pros and cons, and now like at the very beginning, it was like filling everything out, going down. It took 10 minutes to fill this paper out, but now it's like 2 seconds in my head. I'm just, I can think about it. I'm like, okay, this is the better route now. And it's not even emotional. And, it really helped. And then going into, I'm a Christian, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. That really helps me, studying the word, doing my Bible study. I attend here at Pathway just across the street. Really helped a lot, going through my Bible, with my Bible study group. Being able to express it. Even my therapist was like open about it. Start talking about your suicide and talk about your depression. I've known now that my depression's probably never going to go away. It's going to come back up. It's an emotion. Like it's going to happen, but how I go about it has changed. When I'm feeling depressed and I want to dive into scripture and learn about it, like it becomes easier and easier. And for me, I ended up realizing my calling was to go volunteer for youth camp this summer. And one of the biggest things that I told I did middle school and high school. To start off middle school, I ended up telling them like, look, it's okay to be expressive in your emotions. You're going to have to express them. Because if you don't do that, it's going to bottle up and you're never going to get it out. And you're going to make wrong, like worse decisions. And
that's the same information to give any, no matter what age, any man that's listening now that thinks
it doesn't help. Once you bottle it up, you're just pretty much bottling it up until the cap's busted off. You're going to make a decision out of anger and it's not going to be a good one.
Right. And it affects not just you, but your relationships, like you said, relationships with significant others, relationships with your children. And I think if you don't get that right, then unfortunately it's going to be something that your child will carry. And I mean, that's not the kind of legacy that a parent, man or woman, want their child to carry.
Absolutely.
And so when you were at camp, and would you say that
it was life-changing?
I was going to say, would you say that your relationship with the Lord and attending camp and really diving into that is what changed your life?
So what really changed was I was at high school camp, and what was wild was, we're in service, and I have one of the boys in my group, was pretty much, we were in service at night. We were, discussing forgiveness, God, will forgive you for anything that you've committed sin, or you forgiving somebody else. And one of my boys, actually, a lot of my boys were, actually I take that back. My middle school and high schoolers were pretty much in tears, in both camps. And I was like trying to understand, like I'm crying too, because I can feel the power of the Lord working in his guiding me through to help these kids. Because at the beginning I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, please God, guide me to help me guide these kids.
Right.
Because I know I need your guidance for me. And, but at high school, it ended up it came straight to fruition because one of the boys, kind of quiet, what really wasn't, he was opening up a little bit during our small groups and whatnot. But at the beginning of the camp, I don't know why, I just felt like a feeling I needed to open up about myself. I ended up admitting that, I'm a sinner. I cheated. I lied to my girlfriend. I almost committed suicide, you name it. My parents are divorced, that kind of thing. Well, I had one boy, one high schooler, he ended up coming out, had said, I need to get breath. I got to breathe. So go with him, go talk to him. He's like, I've been contemplating suicide for so long. His father had just passed away. He doesn't know how to handle his emotions. And like, it just like a ton of bricks just like landed on me. And I'm just like, God, like you literally had just put me here for a reason.
Yes.
Because, who else had to know how to go through that? And, just sat there and talked to him. And I was like, well, what, are you thinking about it? He's just like, I've just had thoughts. And I'm like, okay, we need to get you help. I was like, I notified him, like, I'm going to let your mom know. We need to let your mom know that you're going through this. I was like, but understand that it's for a good reason.
Right.
You need therapy.
Right.
You need to talk about it. I get you're going through a hard time, but it's okay because not everybody, but there's other people that are going through this. Even when my grandfather died in 2016, I was getting ready for a deployment. I was, got a girlfriend pregnant back then. That child ended up being mine. I was already emotional from that. I was not in the right place. I'd been contemplating suicide. Even my supervisor I keep mentioning, she ended up helping me go talk to a pastor about it. But the steps that I knew how to take at that point, and now going through my therapy and understanding how to get through it, I gave it to him.
Yes.
And I was just like, God, I was like, like, I don't understand it. I don't get it, but thank you. Thank you for putting me and understanding that I have a purpose here.
Because, and that it is so true. And I've shared this so many times with people that have come on to share their testimony, their journey thus far. And, that God does not call the equipped, he equips the called. And he equipped you so much. And he knew exactly what he was doing. He always does.
And it wasn't just him. It was all the boys. I had one boy that, his stepdad or someone was, had put hands on his mother. I had another one that was angry at himself. One of them, had a prodigal son moment where, he's the older brothers that stayed home with his dad. The family worked his butt off, and his other brother went off and started partying and stuff like that. And he's like, where am I being accepted? That kind of thing. One of them, he's like, I haven't done anything wrong, but at the same time, he's like, I can see where myself is like going down the wrong path. Even one of the students was from Ukraine, going through war. And I'm just like,
wow.
I have a military background. I was like, he's like, no one understands. I was like, I understand. I don't know about the feeling of losing your country, but I was like, I understand the feelings about war. I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen bombs going off. I've seen, people being shot at and stuff like that. I was like, God, you put me here.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, like you literally put me with a group that needed it.
Yes. And I thank God for that, because who knows what seeds you planted, what lives that your testimony could possibly have saved, because you know how that feels, what that feels like. And thank God that you were there, that he put you where you needed to be vulnerable, so that those young men were able to express themselves and their emotions and know that it's okay.
And that's the part where like the bullying part comes in, just the very beginning. Some of them, I could see where they have bullied before and haven't, but I'm just like, look, guys, like it's okay to express your emotions, but don't go about like bullying somebody else because you need to get a release. Right.
So what would you tell your young self, Mason? What would you say to your younger self?
My younger self, if I was back in high school, I'd tell myself, don't change. Don't change who you are, because I let everything slide off. If I went back to my 21-year-old self, 22, I would be like, look back at yourself whenever you were younger. You didn't let anything bother you. You let, if people were bullying you, you or people were trying to hurt you, you just let it slide off.
Mm.
But I let, others' opinions matter to me more, and what the way they viewed me. And I was just with the wrong crowd.
Mm.
And I was just trying to get the same release that they were trying to get emotionally.
And you have another comment here. It says, "Thank you for your service, Mason. Thank you for sharing your story. So glad that you have learned to overcome your tendency, as well as being the good father that you are to your son." Why tell your story? Why share?
I think I feel like this is God's calling to me. It's still hard now. It gets easier over time to talk about it. I'm still very remorseful of what I've done, but at the same time, I've forgiven myself. Am I going to do it again? No, absolutely not. But at the same time, I want to work with these, young men that are in, middle school, high school, all the students, so they can use not necessarily me as an example, but understand my story and what I went through, so they don't have to go through it.
Absolutely.
It's tough. Like, if I can give any knowledge, will they listen to it? Maybe. I've seen airmen that I've given advice to, they just completely ignore it. But it's just like, look, I think it's also a big difference between the military and like civilian world, where you're in church and you're building this rapport with these people. Cause like, in the military, you have to be there. You've signed a contract. You got to be there.
Right.
Here at the church, I'm dedicating my time to you.
And are you involved in, do you have a circle of friends? Do you have community? I mean, and I'm sure that's very important.
Very important to me. Finding my community with the church, through my Bible study group has helped completely. Instead of having so many friends now, I've narrowed it down to a few people that I hang out with all the time. We go to Bible study every other Thursday. Even a couple of friends of mine, our kids play together. We come to, go eat lunch after church, do things on, randomly in the week, game nights, that stuff. Yeah. Like,
and what age group is that? Can someone reach out to you like through Facebook or even a comment here if they were wanting to?
For sure. If anyone needs anything or wants to talk or open up, even if you have a student that's troubled or going through bullying and needs to know how to face it or handle it or express their emotions, or they are the bully. And they, I've done, work with, adolescent kids that have been in, detention and stuff like that. I've worked with them in high school. But if they want to reach out, they definitely can through Facebook, Instagram, whichever way you can find to get a hold of me.
Awesome. And how can they find you? What's the name? Is it Mason Varguez?
Mason Varguez on Facebook, or Instagram, Mason Tyler_JTX.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I know you did a lot of good here tonight. Thank you, Mason, for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You guys have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. And I will put Mason's information in the comments. Have a good night.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County.